Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have a very special guest, Ryan, who is here to talk about his IronViz entry. So over to you to do a short intro for yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. I'm really happy to be a part of this episode of Secrets of the Viz. My name is Ryan Soares. I've been using Tableau for around 8 years now. I started using Tableau for work purposes, but then it became something I started to do as a hobby when I started to explore data analytics and visualization. Then I became a Tableau Public ambassador earlier this year for the new cohort. So really happy to be a part of this episode and to share my IronViz submission with you all.
Sounds good. So how did the inspiration of doing a Viz on Shark Tank arrive?
Yeah, I think the topic this year being entertainment was really broad. And we've seen that with the last few IronViz topics. Last year was things you love. Before that, it was things that bring you joy. So it's been very wide ranging topics. I wanted to go in a direction that has a very unique story. That's how I always approach IronViz. And with it being entertainment, I thought of different shows I like, and the idea for this one came very organically. I have a crocheted moose that has been on my work desk for around the past year, and when I looked at it, uh, I realized that this was actually a product on Shark Tank, and just thinking that every product that we have has a story behind it in terms of how it was made, how it ultimately ended up in your hands. Shark Tank is one of those ways that products can ultimately get to a consumer. So I decided to explore that topic.
I think I've watched Shark Tank on and off when there's really something innovative and it goes viral on TikTok or YouTube and stuff like that. But it's a really interesting show because it encourages entrepreneurship. And sometimes you learn a lot from how people present their products and elevator pitch because the sharks are not there to play. They want information really fast. And I think some of this presentation styles gets translated into how you actually approach talking to stakeholders in your business world as well. So I really like how you do the design for the entire thing. There's a lot of illustration going with the little icons you have for each of the sharks and that beautiful Sankey that stretches across the Viz. How do you arrive at using that Sankey to anchor the entire Viz?
So yeah, you mentioned two things there. Firstly, I wanted to focus on the design of the Viz, but not have it be too distracting that it takes away from the analysis and the storytelling. So this was all done in Figma, the design of the icons, the custom text, and the graphic elements that you see on the screen. And then you also mentioned the Sankey. So when I was doing research on this topic, one of the things that stood out to me was this little stat that said for one season on Shark Tank, they received 40,000 applications. Only 160 businesses actually got to pitch to the Sharks, and then 90 appeared on TV and so on. That's how I got the idea for this Sankey, to really show that so many people aspire to be on Shark Tank, to get that opportunity to get investment into their businesses, but less than 1% even get to be in front of the Sharks. And I really wanted that to guide the user through the story as they scroll down the Viz. That was another reason why I decided to go with a vertical layout for the Viz as opposed to a horizontal.
And to that point, I think with the nature of the show itself, I don't think there's any other perfect chart that you could possibly use to represent Shark Tank.
Yeah, because
It's a funnel.
it's a funnel, exactly. And I think one of my earliest sketches for this was actually a funnel. The interesting thing about this is that if you look at it from the very top to the bottom, it's actually a sand key. And what I mean by that is the sections of these don't carry out all the way from the top to the bottom. So the way this is actually built is it's three different sand keys on top of each other, but all together it shows the flow from the top to the bottom. Thanks to the Flurlage twins, we have a very easy template that we can use.
I also have to call out a very subtle but unique design that you put in there. You have this transparent layer that you use to deselect the ones that don't flow to the next section. And I thought that was really a unique and interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, because the whole idea of it is to highlight those that ultimately end up being successful. So that left-hand portion of the curve is a transparent gradient image on top of those portions.
That's good. I also really like the section at the top where you have the TV console for them to actually click and it changes the stream graph.
Yes. So total investment, or it shows the viewership.
Yeah, there's so much to love about how you chose the charts. And I was looking at the Tableau file and you have everything on floating, which means that definitely took you a lot of time just to position everything on the viz itself.
Yeah, and I've learned that through the years. It's my fifth time doing IronViz, and I think for every time I've done it, I've just went floating all the way. It gives you more flexibility to do more creative type of visualizations. But the one thing I learned is when you're going to undertake that, you need to really plan ahead of time where everything is going, because a perfect example of this is just the size of the viz itself, like the overall dimensions. If you decide to change that at the last minute, make your dashboard 500 pixels longer, it's going to stretch everything and you have to go in and manually move it.
So I would say that a lot of that trial and error happened on Figma rather than Tableau.
That's right. This Sankey was one of the first things that was built so that I could take that screenshot, put it into Figma, and then see where I could line up everything else around it, since it's a central part of the viz.
I think at this point of state, Tableau should probably try to acquire Figma because a lot of the community folks are using Figma for a lot of the data visualization work. So it makes sense, I guess.
It would definitely make things easier. Yeah, for sure.
And so were there any really interesting stories when you were building the Viz? I imagine that the data set would be quite difficult to acquire because there are like a lot of like investment information and equity and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, there are a number of sources that I use, but the main one for all the deals related information was off Kaggle. There was a data set that had every pitch in the history of the show from season 1 to season 15, and then information on which sharks were in the deal, all the equity percentages, and the information on the companies themselves. So it was a pretty good data set to use. And then I did a bunch of research on the side to find things that wouldn't be captured in that data set. For example, things like this 40,000 apply, 158 pitch, down to how many actually close a deal with the sharks. Those were all found through research, because there isn't data out there to capture that. I think those are more private pieces of information, but some people have already looked into that. I think Robert Herjavec had said that around 50% of the deals that get made on the show don't actually close. So yeah, you can analyze it based on the types of sharks, or the sharks that partner up on deals, or what industries certain sharks prefer. So I really enjoyed going into those details. And the most interesting part of it was ultimately coming up with this map of all of the deals on the show.
And I really love the marginal histogram heat map slash heat map that you have, which gives you a very high level view of where the concentration of the deals are happening.
Yeah, there were different directions you can go on this one too. Like this one right here is just overall the number of deals. If you do a percentage of total for just a single shark, you can see the distribution of their own deals across the industries.
And I love that little Easter egg that you put in there on the Shark Tank effect. This one is really interesting because I think some of the deals that come on Shark Tank don't really need the sharks. They're just there for the publicity and marketing, just to get their name out there. And I've seen like a couple of them like this.
Yeah, that's one of the avenues to success from the show. That's the reason why I wanted to highlight it here. Again, the way I conclude the viz is by highlighting that examples of businesses that were successful from the three different outcomes of the show. So if they don't get a deal at all, they didn't close a deal, or they actually closed a deal. So there's different avenues to success. And as you said, the main goal of many businesses is just to get onto the show, period, which isn't easy at all. And you don't get a deal, it's still a huge value just from the eyes that you get on your business.
All right. I think we have everything we need for today's interview. Thank you, Ryan, for spending time with us to talk about your IronViz entry. It's amazing Viz. Hope everyone learned something new from this, and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you. I really enjoyed this Viz, and if you ask me, it's probably very worthy of top 10, but that depends on the judges this year. They are not having a great time this year because there are so many great entries this year. Is there anything that you're working on next, or you're just taking a break for the holidays?
Nothing in the immediate future. The way I approach my Tableau content is to build vizzes really from my personal interests. So I'm not focusing on building anything right now. One thing I do have on the go is a sports Tableau user group. We're planning one upcoming in the start of February. So be on the lookout for that.
So you mentioned that you were also looking through the IronViz entries, all 191 of them. Were there any other ones that really popped up to you?
Yeah, there's a few. So I think yours is, and I'm not saying that because I'm on your show, but I think yours was really well done. I really enjoyed the personal story angle that you wove into your viz.
Thank you.
I mean, there's so many. I think the one that does come to mind is the one by Kevin Wee.
The Broadway one.
The Broadway one, yeah, that one was also very well done. A lot of depth in the analysis, and the design was very good as well. So as you said, it's going to be a tough task for them, but I think everyone can be proud because IronViz isn't easy to
Isn't it?
to
Like
do.
even with that 1 month deadline.
I always go into it wanting to have structure, but it never works that way. I put a lot of time into ideating and brainstorming on a topic, so I can go back and forth on topics for 2 weeks, but I really want to like an idea and be all in on it. So for this year's IronViz, I think I spent probably 2.5 weeks going through topics and different ideas. And then once I had something, it was maybe like a week and a half of doing the Figma stuff. And the last week was just Tableau development.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I went through the same process as well because, like you said, mine was a personal viz that I had to go and dig up all the experiences that I had as a kid. These days, you have like the Steam profile, you have like your PlayStation trophies and achievements, so you can get like how many hours you actually played the game, whether you completed the game and stuff like that. But back then in 1990s, there weren't any digital footprints of video gaming, so I took easily 2 to 3 weeks on just data collection. And that is on top of me having a good data set to start with, because back last 2 months, GameSideViz actually released a starter kit, similarly to the Data Plus TV and Data Plus Movie, where we have a list of 14,000 games that was released since 1980s, unique titles. So that was a very good launching pad for me because I didn't have to go and recollect and rescript Metacritic and Wikipedia. But even from that, I had to go through each of the game in that list and go like, oh, I played that game, I didn't play that game, I played that game, I didn't play that game. So it was a long process. And then the last week was spent building everything in Figma and Tableau, which is a lot of fun.
Last year, I went through something like that. I did my IronViz on my pin collection, and my data set, I had to do it by hand. So I cataloged 280 pins. I took pictures of every single one, and that was like 3 weeks of work.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely recognize all the effort that people put into IronViz. It's really cool to see all the different angles and topics that people have. So yeah, congrats to everyone that submitted. I think there's really high quality work out there this year.